I might ask you to share some of the personal attributes that you think you really bring to the table.
To be successful in our industry, you have to have a passion to serve, to really take enjoyment and be fulfilled and get a thrill out of exceeding guests' expectations.
Well, I want to welcome everybody to another episode of our Counting Capital podcast. And this is a real treat for me. I've got a special guest who I had the honor of having lunch with last month, Alan Fuerstman, who is the chairman and CEO of Montage Resorts. And I must say, I remember as a kid growing up in Laguna Beach, and I was, Alan, I would go down skin diving right down there at Treasure Island Pier. You might remember that pier.
I've seen pictures of it, yeah.
Seen pictures, right. And there was a mobile home park above on the cliff there. And to see the property that you and the group has created and sits today is amazing. It's been great for Laguna, and the beaches are spectacular. So it's a real honor for me to have a chance to do this with you. So thanks for joining.
Yeah, it's my pleasure.
I think where we want folks, knowing the Montage Hotel and Resorts, I think most people know that name and what that's about. But we're going to hear more about that. I think let's start with having people get to know you a little bit and your background. You know, I recall you telling me, and I was kind of dumbfounded, that you started your career as a doorman in Jersey for a Marriott and, then went to where we are today. So bring to life a little bit, if you don't mind, the evolution of your career to becoming the founder of the Montage. It's amazing.
Sure. I grew up in New Milford, New Jersey, a suburb of New York City, about 20 minutes outside of the city. And my senior year in high school, I got a part-time job as a doorman at a Marriott hotel, the Saddlebrook Marriott. It was just a fun job for me and get a little spending money. And I went off to college and went to Gettysburg College in Pennsylvania. Never planning on making a career in the hotel business, but summer jobs, I'd come back and work at the hotel. I really enjoyed it quite a bit. And when I graduated from school, I was planning on just taking a year off before going to graduate school. It happened to coincide with Marriott opening a resort in Southern California out in the desert, Marriott's Rancho Las Palmas Resort back in 1978, 79. And the general manager of that hotel happened to have been the general manager that I had worked for in New Jersey. And we had kept in touch through the years. And he said, look, why don't you open the hotel for me as our bell captain? You'll get a great experience. You'll see the hotel through a general manager's eyes, and it'll be a great adventure. And what started out as just an interesting, fun opportunity, I've transformed into a career for me. I fell in love with the business and decided to work my way up through all the different areas of a hotel from a management perspective, and that's how I got my start in the hotel business.
Well, Alan, I recall over our lunch you discussing the importance of mentorship for you. And I think about the likes of some of your early mentors, to someone who became the CEO of Fairmont, Bob Small, recruited by Steve Wynn to help open the Bellagio, as kind of key moments in your career development. Can you color this for us a bit? And I know you talk about mentorship a lot.
Sure. So actually, that opportunity for me to come out to California and open as a bell captain was for Bob Small, who had been the general manager in New Jersey. And how I met Bob, though, is an interesting story. I was working that first job of mine as a bellman in New Jersey when one evening, guy checks into the hotel. He and his wife, I take him upstairs, get him all checked in. He comes back down and asks me an hour-long worth of questions on a quiet Saturday night. What's it like working for Marriott? What's it like living in the area? And all that. And 2 weeks later, I'm standing at the bell stand, and the bell captain pokes me in the rib and said, "Hey, look alive, here comes the new general manager." And it's, "Hey, Alan." He never told me who he was. And the encounter we had was me as a energetic, young, excited employee, and he as an inquisitive guest. And that led to us a special bond, a special relationship. And he saw something in me that really encouraged me to make a career in the hotel business. And at first I was, maybe, but then I got really enthused about it after having spent a lot of time with him opening a resort and seeing what happens in the complexity and the so many different components of a hotel. It was fascinating and interesting, and I was highly motivated to pursue that. And then further on in my career, I got to work for some extraordinary leaders, and that played a big role in my envisioning what I wanted to do eventually.
Very, very interesting. I think we all self-reflect, especially as we move along in our careers. And as you self-reflect, I might ask you to share some of the personal attributes that you think you really bring to the table or have that really enabled you to be best suited for this career in the hotel and resort management space.
Well, I think you need to be um, compassionate for those that work for you, that are actually providing the leadership and the compassion that comes with that is essential to motivate people to do extraordinary things. At the end of the day, the experiences that our guests have are experiences provided by thousands of people that work for us, and our ability to motivate, excite, and share a vision are incredibly important. I think to be successful in our industry, you have to have a passion to serve, to really take enjoyment and be fulfilled, and get a thrill out of exceeding guests' expectations, exceeding what the norm is. And I think that's a big part of it. I think to be successful in our industry and in many industries, there's a competitiveness, wanting to be a little better than everybody else and wanting to win. And I think that's a healthy attribute that it helps drive performance. It's but so much of what we do is engaging and exciting those to perform at the highest levels, and that's and it's other people's performance that ultimately defines how successful we are in delivering our service and our brand consistent message.
Well said. We'll talk a little bit more about employee empowerment here in a bit because I think that's a real differentiator for you. But maybe as we're still framing the space in your career bit, I think a lot of people get confused. You and I talked about this at lunch a bit. They get confused with the difference between kind of hotel management and the ownership maybe of the bricks and mortar. So I think it would be valuable if you can clarify for us the differentiation and your relationship with property owners and the services you provide.
We're a hotel management company, which is essentially an asset-light company. We don't typically own the assets which we operate, the bricks and mortar, the real estate. And that's very similar to Four Seasons, Ritz-Carlton, other brands. So what happens is companies, individuals, REITs, any number of investors in real estate will actually own the physical properties, and the management companies, their income stream is typically a percentage of revenue and an incentive fee based on profit, and that's how management companies essentially create their business model. So for us, entering into long-term durable management contracts is the value proposition for us as a management company. Now, occasionally we'll invest in hotels as well, some sliver equity perhaps, or when launching a new brand. When we launched Pender, we invested as proof of concept in the very first hotel we did. But generally, investors in the real estate are less concerned about the hotel management companies. The value we bring to the table is the premiums that we're able to charge and the huge value that we can create for the asset owners. So the relationship between owner of hotel and operator works hand in hand.
Very helpful. You mentioned asset light. Understand that in terms of maybe the balance sheet of Montage. But as I think about profits participation, really those management contracts can be quite attractive with what I'm going to call a phantom equity element to it that enables you to participate in upside for a job well done. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, typically the way the management contracts are structured, there's again a base management fee, and then typically an incentive fee that's based on an owner's return on equity, perhaps, or there's different formulas that may come into play, but they'll participate after the owner of the asset is making a healthy return on their investment.
Excellent. So I think it's time in our conversation to talk a little bit about how the Montage brand came into existence. So I think we'd really like to hear about how you really viewed differentiating yourself and kind of your, what I'm going to call humble approach to the luxury space. How did you come up with Montage? Just take us through that entrepreneurial moment.
I built up to that entrepreneurial moment. Essentially, I was running hotels. My career with Marriott culminated with opening and being the hotel manager for Marriott's Desert Springs, which was their flagship resort at the time, opened in the mid 1980s. Following that, I went to work. I was recruited by ITT Sheraton, and I started doing the resort development work in addition to operating a resort in Arizona. And we acquired the Phoenician Resort in Scottsdale. And I went there as the president and managing director of that hotel and oversaw a group of luxury hotels. And while running the Phoenician Resort, I was involved in the acquisition of the hotel where our company paid $240 million for that hotel. And when I left 4 years later to open and manage Bellagio in Las Vegas, the value of the Phoenician had increased to over $500 million through just the performance of the hotel, the small addition we had done to the hotel. But I really got a taste of what value could be created with an incredible physical property coupled with an incredible style of service. And at that time, in the mid-90s, the Phoenician was arguably the top resort in North America, both from a performance perspective and a guest satisfaction perspective. I go on to open Bellagio, which was a great experience, but that was about managing on a large scale, bringing luxury to 3,000 rooms. And I was constantly thinking back to the value creation and the style of service and what I had done at the Phoenician, and thought there was a need in the marketplace as I looked at what was happening in luxury. My perception of old world luxury was that it was too stuffy, too pretentious, and the next generation of luxury traveler was looking for a much more gracious and humble approach to luxury, that it would be less scripted, that each hotel would have a sense and spirit of place. And if you think back 20-some years ago, the big brands, or the luxury brands, at that time was Four Seasons, Ritz-Carlton. They were probably up to 50, 60 hotels, but they were replicating the same look and feel from one location to the other. And I thought that if we could really pay homage to the locales in which we operated and had a style of service that was different than that traditional old world, basically stuffy feeling, that we could really resonate with the next generation of luxury traveler. And that was the premise that I was building a luxury company around. And part of that idea was that next generation of consumer would be looking for that. But what I discovered after we opened in Laguna Beach was the older generation said, we didn't need all that either. We're just as happy to be in a fine dining restaurant in jeans than we were having to wear a suit in the lobby at some of the old world style luxury properties. So it hit the right note at the right time. And it created an opportunity to do something that could differentiate us as a brand. And of course, I was blessed with Laguna Beach as the platform to launch the very first hotel. I had raised some capital and decided that post 9/11 was the ideal time to launch. It was somewhat of a contrarian play, with the thought being the hotel industry was down. I thought there'd be a recurrence of luxury assets selling at a discount. We would buy a luxury hotel, and I would have the hotel operating company and the capital to invest in an asset, and then I'd build a brand around that. And what happened after 9/11 was the industry was slow to recover, but there wasn't a fire sale on luxury assets. But there was a brief moment in time where the big companies were preserving their balance sheet with the uncertainty of what was happening. And I had this opportunity to put some capital to work for a tremendous investor that had confidence in what I was creating. And that gave us the opportunity to launch and actually a new build opportunity, which ended up being Montage Laguna Beach. When I started my company, I had named my company the Platinum Hotel Group because it was just a placeholder name. And the idea was that I wanted a rich sounding name. Platinum Hotel sounded pretty rich to me.
Right.
And then whatever brand or whatever hotel we would acquire, I assumed I would build the brand around an existing brand. Well, when the opportunity for Laguna Beach was to do a new hotel, I had to come up with a brand that would work both for the hotel and also a brand that would work for the larger company, because the idea was always to do a group of hotels. Well, we found Laguna Beach, able to cut the deal to get the deal done. And now the clock was ticking because we were about to announce it, and I needed to come up with a name for what was that hotel going to be. And I was inspired by Laguna Beach having started as an artist colony. Well, first I went to my advertising agency and asked for names. They gave me hundreds of names. Then I went to my PR company and I said, look, I'll give $10,000 to ever comes up in your organization with a name. They gave me a lot of names, but none quite hit the mark. And then, as I mentioned, I was focusing on art words because Laguna Beach had started as an artist colony,
Sure.
and that was the location of the first hotel. So I went to an art reference guide, A to Z, went through the A's, the B's, the C's, got to the letter M, saw the word Montage. It said artful compilation, collection. I said, that's exactly what this is going to be, a collection of hotels that we're going to assemble or create, a collection of people coming together to do extraordinary things. I said to myself, I'm staying at the Ritz, I'm staying at the Montage, staying at the Four Seasons, staying at the Montage. It sounded great off the tongue. Did a quick search, it wasn't being used. I had our lawyers lock it up, and that's how ultimately we named Montage Montage.
I love it. I think as you talk to entrepreneurs, you and I both have many peers and friends. We hear those stories often about how these names come about, and it's through just the entrepreneur's own passion and understanding of what they're really trying to do. So that's a great story. Before we jump to some more about Montage, I want to understand that property in Laguna has changed ownership hands how many times now?
Well, the original owner was let's see, was Piero Meteors was the original owner through his
From eBay, right?
Yes, and he's my friend and the person that believed in what I was doing and gave me this incredible opportunity from in the confidence that I could deliver what I said I could deliver. So tremendous thanks to him for believing in me.
Sure.
So he was the first owner, and through his Ohana Real Estate, which was his company that was the ownership entity, sold to a REIT. The REIT then was sold, and then it was sold again to Tillman Fertitta, who is out of Houston, Texas, who is a tremendous owner for the property as well, because, again, sharing in the vision of the property, committed to tremendous quality. Great continuity in ownership, although it's 3-4 owners. From a guest perspective, it's Montage and the brand and being able to drive the performance. Having great owners is essential because the reinvestment of the properties, you go onto the property today, it looks better than the day it opened. And that's a commitment to maintaining a property and reinvesting and making sure that it is forever fresh and great. And we've been fortunate with the ownerships in Laguna Beach that we've been able to continue the reinvestment, and we've continued to have the market dominance we've had in large part because the service delivery as well as the product delivery.
Well, you must be quite proud, you and your team. I mean, it's an iconic value creation for all of the owners. And it's great to see you as the common, thread through all of this. And I'm sure your owners are quite happy with you. With that, maybe you can talk a little bit now. What does Montage consist of today? And maybe a little bit of the evolution of the Pendry, which I think many on the call don't understand is part of your now greater organization.
Yeah, so Montage today uh, is Montage International, consists of 15 hotels that are open, 7 Montage hotels and resorts, 8 Pendry hotels and resorts, residences at both Montage and Pendry, some clubs that we manage, and we are in development on another little over a dozen hotels, both Montage and Pendry properties. So it's a combination of the two brands, the residential portfolio and the clubs that we manage.
Helpful. So why the Pendry? You're so successful with Montage. Where did you see as a void in the market, or let's say differently, the entrepreneur's opportunity recognized for this other brand?
So Montage competes in the ultra luxury segment of the business, the highest rates, the best locations, and to build the right products and to deliver the consistent levels of service. There's very few markets that can support Montage hotels. And as a student of what other luxury brands had done, the biggest challenges are when there's a gap between quality of different hotels within one brand's portfolio. So we were committed, laser focused on every Montage, measuring up both from the physical perspective as well as the service perspective. And that, by nature, limits the markets that you can put a Montage hotel. The cost to build a Montage, the size of the room, the number of fixtures in the bathroom, the number of amenity offering, and frankly, the rate ceiling that certain markets have make it very difficult to grow Montage in markets that can't attract the rate we need to get. And if you look at what we look at we were approached by so many opportunities to put the Montage flag, but when we explained the economics of how much it would cost to build it versus how it would perform, we were turning down deal after deal. The opportunity for luxury in some markets, but not necessarily a Montage, was evident. So we were looking for an opportunity to take advantage of all the infrastructure we developed for Montage, but in a different form. But it really still needed to be luxury to be consistent with what our company was. When we looked at the competitive landscape, we saw that there was a gap at the original lifestyle hotels, the W's, Ian Schrager hotels. They were high on energy and excitement, but not as service focused, not as the rooms weren't as well designed. It was more about the scene in the lobby. It was more about the energy than it was the service delivery. So our thesis was, why don't we develop our next brand that rooted in the style of service of Montage with the energy and excitement of what the early lifestyle hotels were all about, and actually fill that void in the marketplace, in large part because the original W. Schrager guest had aged a little bit. They wanted more than a surly doorman, and they wanted more than a dimly lit room, and they wanted enough luxury elements, but they didn't want to give up on the fun. They still wanted that energy. And so we created Pendry to fill what we thought was the void in the market and enable us to continue to grow in markets that could support luxury but a more contemporary, newer luxury than what we were doing with Montage. Montage is more traditional.
Well, I've stayed at a Pendry. I've certainly stayed at a number of Montages, and the differentiation is clear. And I think maybe your first Pendry was San Diego, the rooftop down there. I
Yeah.
thoroughly enjoyed ourselves when we stayed there, and it had an energy and a spark to it and a youthfulness to it. Congratulations on that success. It's got to be one of your top performing assets, I would assume.
Yeah, no, Pendry has been incredibly successful. I'm so proud of the team and my son who heads up Pendry. He's the driving force behind Pendry. He took the lead in the creation of Pendry with us. And it speaks to a younger, dynamic energy, both from a culinary, from an art perspective, from nightlife. It's been great for us, and it's authentic. It's driven by someone who really gets it, has a great design aesthetic, and we're seeing tremendous growth opportunities in that brand. In fact, we've surpassed the number of Montages with Pendrys, and we opened our first Pendry in 2017. We're up to 8 hotels that are open, and as we look at our pipeline, it's almost 2-to-1 Pendrys to Montage as we go forward.
My gosh. So Pendry, naming of that, remind me what's the connection with Pendry?
Yeah. So as we were creating the brand, we focused on know thyself, which was more of the ethos of what we thought the customer would be about. Look, and my son actually found the Pendry name. He was looking under Know Thyself, and in the far reaches of the internet, found this House of Pendry dating back to the 1300s in England. And the House of Pendry's family motto was Know Thyself, and we took the name Pendry around that motto, and it's been it works for us.
Well done. You earlier on, and I know from just talking with you that you've discussed that one of your greatest assets of your company is the human capital. And when I've stayed at your properties, I've noticed how what I'm going to describe your employees present to be very empowered, to have the discretion to make decisions on their own. So talk a little bit about your philosophy of how many employees do you have today?
We probably have 7,000, maybe.
My gosh. Okay. So how do you keep all of them rowing in the same direction and carrying on the culture that you're so proud of and differentiates you?
But we have a tremendous focus on learning. We have directors of learning at our hotels. We before any of our team starts, they participate in what we call Montage Mores or Pendry Know Thyself, where they get a tremendous education about what the company is about and what we aspire to be and how we want to perform, and then it's the ongoing training that happens. But actually, it actually even starts before that with the initial onboarding, the selection process, how we recruit talent. It's just a tremendous amount of energy spent on the recruitment and then the retention and development of the talent within our organization. For us to be able to grow really requires us to continue to focus on the development of our people so they can take on additional responsibilities. And then when we open new hotels, we typically take some of our seasoned veterans to new hotels, plus bring in new talent. We support our new hotel openings with task force of our star performers that will go help hotels open, and we spread the culture by educating, reinforcing, all through the learning and training components, and an emphasis on mentoring. It's very important that we continue to provide opportunities. And as I look around the key leaders of our hotel, for example, our general manager in Big Sky, who does an incredible job, Victoria Gonzalez, he's been with me 30 years, but he was a restaurant manager originally, and then took on additional responsibilities. Ultimately, was general manager at our Pendry in San Diego. Before that, he was the hotel manager in Cabo, and before that in Deer Valley, and before that Beverly Hills. So the continuity from our senior people. David Hoffman, our general manager at Pendry Newport Beach, which recently opened. David his first job with us was at Montage Laguna Beach. He was the front office manager when we opened there. He moved up through the company to eventually, he was the hotel manager in Maui. He was the opening general manager of our Pendery in Baltimore. And then he opened our Pendery in West Hollywood as general manager. And he always wanted to get home to Newport Beach. And he's home in Newport Beach, where his family is ecstatic to be back. And he's the general manager of our hotel there, and just doing a remarkable job. So developing the talent from within the organization, incredibly important, and also recruiting talent from outside the organization and finding the best and brightest to work with us.
Yeah, I noted how you, in essence, allow them to make mistakes. I'm going to say it that way. You give them the discretion to do things on their own that they think might provide that je ne sais quoi of customer experience.
Yeah, I mean, the interesting thing about empowerment is we can talk about empowerment and we can empower people, but if you then slap them down when they make a mistake, or they won't make decisions, because they'll be you may say they're empowered, but not if you overreact when they make a decision that wasn't the way you want to do it. No, empowerment is about training. It's about learning and growing, but really having the ability to make the decision in the moment to provide the levels of service or the support for our associates or whatever it might be. But empowerment, you don't blindly give it. It comes with the training and the support and the guidance and the mentorship that yields the best results.
Well, it's certainly working for you. It's very clear when you stay at one of your properties. Tell me a little bit, the hotel resort business, prompted partly by capital markets,
Yeah.
partly by paradigm shifts of people's desires. Who's your greatest competitor today, or competitors? And how do you continue to differentiate yourself with those? I'm sure it's some of the things you've talked about, but just a little
Yeah,
perspective.
our competitors vary by market. I mean, in some markets, the primary competitor might be a Four Seasons or a Ritz Carlton, or it might be an independent hotel. So with Montage, the competitors tend to be the very best hotel in a given market. So you go into Maui, where we have Montage Kapalua Bay. We're competing both with other maybe the Four Seasons on Maui, or Lanai, or any global beach destination. So we compete with the top markets and the top destinations everywhere in that Montage portfolio. Um, so that's pretty laser focused on that. Don't and we compete through the styles of service that are, the gracious, humble approach to service,
Yes.
but it's trying to personalize it. And when I look at what makes a great hotel, you have to be able to do two things really well. You have to be able to perfect the basics. You better be able to have an exceptionally clean hotel, and things run on time and things work smoothly. But that's just the basic service. And then you have to focus on creating wows, recognizing special events and anniversaries or birthdays, listening to things that we can pick up on to connect with the guest. That's so important. And then being great at recovering, because there's so many human interactions. If something goes wrong, fix it with a sincere energy and urgency to make it right. And if we can do those things effectively, we can continue to perform at the highest peak levels. From a competitive basis, on our Pendry brand, the competitive set's a little bit different. Sometimes it overlaps with the same competitors as a Montage in some markets. For example, in Baltimore, our primary competitor is a Four Seasons. But in most markets, if you look at the brands, Edition by Marriott is a brand that's competes in our space. One Hotel often competes in the space that Henry plays in. So it can be some of those brands, and again, independent hotels. For example, in New York, it might be the Greenwich Hotel, or it might be Ferndale Hotel, like Crosby Street or something. So broad group of competitors. We don't focus on any one individual competitor. But I look at the competitive landscape all the time. I look to get great ideas and look for ways to continue to improve our service delivery and improve the kind of offerings that we have.
Sure. Well articulated. I think to be an entrepreneur is still to have sleepless nights.
Oh my
So
gosh.
as you think about biggest challenges that maybe you face, that could be a paradigm shift in the resort business. It could be the capital markets. Tell me what's impacting your business that keeps you up at night or makes you pay attention.
Well, scaling is incredibly important. How do we deliver the same um, consistency as we continue to grow? So I always have an eye towards that. And then we've had to deal with in the post-COVID world, coming out of COVID. We had challenges in finding enough staff in certain markets where it dried up, or it might be housing in some markets. We've seen the impact of inflation. We've seen the impact on rates. Um, just the cost of doing business has escalated, but we still want to make sure that we provide a great value. So making sure one of the things that's been important is that it's a strong value proposition, that we're continuing to add quality at the same time that costs have gone up. It's not a matter. You don't simply raise your rates because you can. You make sure you're giving a value proposition. For example, in Laguna Beach, look, costs went up, rates went up for our guests, but also entertainment went up. Added music at the pool all summer long, and added other elements of service that maybe weren't there before. That let's continue to find ways to provide a great experience for our guests, a cut above.
I'm sure today, Alan, there's so many listeners on our program that are clients of yours, customers. They've experienced what you're sharing with them, and it's nice to hear that from the leader. So frame for them the future of Montage as you think about it going forward, and maybe a little bit about your own role within the company.
Yeah, we're in a growth mode. We announced just a couple weeks ago. I had one minority partner that had been with me since we started the company, and we recently announced that they've exited. They did incredibly well, and they've been replaced that minority position by Luxor Capital,
Oh,
Goldman Sachs, and BlackRock are participating. So
congratulations. Yeah.
thank you. And the plan is that there, which for us is amazing belief in us, and belief in the growth ahead for us, and they're the ideal partners to help fuel the growth going, for the next decade. And it's been so we're clearly in a growth mode. I mentioned we had a dozen or so hotels already in the works that are either in design or construction. We are also seeing international growth. In our next phase, we have a hotel opening next year in the Bahamas, a private island. We have it's called Montage Key, incredible location, private island, great residences, all on the ocean front, marina. It's in the Abacos, just flying to Marsh Harbor, and it's a short little 10-minute boat ride, or you take a seaplane directly to the island from Fort Lauderdale. So easy to access, and an incredible resort destination, which opens next year. We also have a Pendry under construction now in Barbados, again with the marina and residential, and super excited about that. We've got 3 projects in Mexico in development. We've got 2 in Punta Mita, both a Montage and a Pendry.
Wow.
And they're going to be outstanding. It's a market we love. We've seen the success of the Four Seasons and the St. Regis there, and We have great beachfront locations, so both of those hotels should do extraordinarily well for us. And again, selling residential product at both of those hotels. Um, we haven't announced it publicly yet, but we have plans to open in Mexico City as well with a Pendry, and we've got some other extraordinary locations in the works. On the global development, we've announced 2 projects in the Middle East, and we have a third we're going to probably announce pretty shortly. So we've got expansion in that part of the world. So we're going to continue to grow, but what will drive our growth will be the quality and the consistency, not the quantity. It's not about how many deals we do; it's about being consistent. And one of the things I'm most proud of, last week I was back in Las Vegas. Forbes, who are the people that give out the stars, 5
Sure.
stars.
Yeah.
Last week they recognized our company as the only hotel company in the world where every hotel in the brand is 5 stars. That's Montage. So incredible recognition. I'm so proud of our teams for achieving that at every Montage. So the entire brand is 5 stars. We're the only ones like that. And I think that really helps us as we plan on growing internationally and expanding, that the brand recognition is there, and that really will help fuel the growth moving forward.
Well, it's clear to me. I asked about your role, but I probably don't need to. Your energy, your vision, your passion. My sense is you're now, and you've got a new partner that's probably enhancing your capital footprint. So my sense is you're not going anywhere, and you're excited about your future career and that evolution, and because you're enjoying yourself.
Very much so, and I've got a tremendous team here. Jason Erthel is my president and chief operating officer, runs the day-to-day of the company, frees me up to focus on design and the architecture and all the new projects they're working on, the growth of the company, and then being the visionary for the company, and getting out to our properties and trying to inspire our teams to and thank them for the kind of work they do. My role is I'm so fortunate because I'm focusing on the things I really love to do. So it keeps me energized and motivated because look, I would be doing this. This is what I would enjoy doing, regardless. It doesn't feel like work when I'm designing a hotel, or when I'm working with architects and interior designers on how do we get spaces just the way we like them. How do you make these resorts or hotels flow the way optimally they can for the guest experience, and it really helps me scratch a creative itch and to enjoy making something that can last for generations. So I'm as excited today as I was 22 years ago when I started Montage.
That shows, perfectly said. I'm respectful of your time. We're going to wrap up with a question that, the pay it forward question, I guess. What advice might you give to a young person looking to pursue hospitality as a career path?
Look, I think the hospitality career path is an extraordinary way to go. There are so many different aspects of our business that you can find your area within it. It's within a hotel world or hotel environment. So I'm very excited about our industry. I think when you look at industries, especially when you get to the luxuries, it's about service delivery, and that's never going to go away. It's not going to be replaced by machines, and the experiences that we create are incredible. And as I talk to young people, it's less about the technical parts. We're going to hire people with incredible attitudes and incredible um, uh, ability to work as a team, and incredible desire to passionately take care of others. We're looking for communication skills. We're looking for different skills, and we'll teach you the technical parts of the job. The beauty of our industry, most of our positions will train to fill out to learn the technical parts, but it's that heart, that commitment, that if you have that and you're interested at all in the hospitality industry, it's a great fit, and I encourage young people to explore that always.
Well, Alan, you've been kind with your time. We got to have you back because there's so much more to cover. I will tell you that many takeaways today. I noted a couple. Just the naming of the House of Pendry, Know Thyself. A great story. Your humble approach to luxury. Creating wows, perfectly said, and you're doing it. Passion to serve others. Having directors of learning. Exceeding guest expectations. And I love the artful compilation of the naming, if you will, of the Montage. You did not disappoint today. Thank you for being on County Capital and being my guest today. And we look forward to talking in the future.
It's my pleasure, and I look forward to our next visit.
And I look forward to seeing you on the next episode of Counting Capital.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of the Counting Capital podcast. For informational purposes only and not to be relied on in any manner as legal, business, financial, tax, or investment advice. Nothing in this episode is an offer to sell or the solicitation of an offer to buy securities. To learn more about Buchanan Street Partners, please visit our website at buchananstreet.com. Buchanan Street Partners, capital you can count on.